Sassy Page.
All right, excuse me. This brother's been here since 11 o'clock. So please give him respect. He is actual walking Black history. So let's take a time to listen to him.
Yeah, so everybody. So yes, he was played towards the end portions of the Negro League, but Satchel and a couple other. Willie Mays. Say hey, Willie Mays. So yes, sir. So with no further ado, Samuel Allen.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm one of the four living survivors in the Negro League. The Negro League was started in 1920, and the Negro National League was started in 1920. And by 1924, the Negro League was the third largest black business in the country. Atlanta Life Insurance Company, and the North Carolina Music, because they wouldn't let black folks who did insurance with white companies. Madam C.J. Walker, she was the first female to make $1 million. She was in the hair industry. And Major League Baseball drove 400,000 fans. The Negro League played under lights 5 years before the Major League played under lights. Plus, when we played them over 300 times, we won over 200 games. Satchel Paige in 1945 was making over $50,000. Wow. 1955. When I came into the league, I came in the Negro National League was from 1920 to 1931. In 1931 to 1962 was the Negro American League. I played in the Negro American League in 1955 to 1959. Played with the Kansas City Monarchs in 57. Played with the Memphis Red Sox. Played with the Raleigh Tigers. The first year I played with the Kansas City Monarchs, got a poster over there with the championship team. I led the league and run scored. When we came to town, see, this was the beginning of the integration. And when we came to a town, the black restaurant, they were going to sell 40 players, 20 on each team. They're going to sell 40 bowls of beef stew. Because what we used to eat, we got $2 a day meal. And at lunchtime, we got 10-cent bowl of beans, 10-cent bowl of rice. You eat a beef stew in the evening. Sometimes you play Monday through Thursday, you play one game. Friday, you play doubleheader. Saturday, you play doubleheader. On Sunday, sometimes you play 4 games, 2 doubleheaders. Traveling, you play after the game, you get on the bus and you ride all night. I thought I loved baseball until about a week I was there. I was ready to come home. The money wasn't great when I came into the league. It was almost, because in 47, when Jackie Robinson went into the major league, all our fans, we got polarized, got fascinated with seeing a black on a white team. So we forgot all about the blacks on the black team. So that means we lost our crowd, and we weren't making any money. My salary was around $150 a month, and that was, I was scared to tell people that. But I tell you what, sometime when you be blessed, I was blessed because I worked until I was 82 years old, believe it or not, because I worked for myself. See, when you work for yourself, you can knock off. Some days I worked till 2 o'clock, and I said, I'm quit. And I had maybe 2 or 3 sets of tools, and I bring a set of tools to your house, and I said, I'll be back tomorrow. It might be next week before I come back. So that's why I was able to work. But I was good at what I did. So these hands fed me with the hands, with the back, and with the child. This was some of my work like this. Yeah. But I'm going to tell you, life has been good to me, and what you got to do is take care of your body, and don't be afraid like those fellas. I remember that fella right there. Step out, and if I had worked on a job, I'd have been dead. Because see, when you work 40 hours a week, they press you. You're going to have high blood pressure, and they're going to kill you. See? But when you work for yourself, you're not going to kill yourself.
All right, we're going to keep moving forward. So this is kind of, so I think the sister, when she did the history of Black history, that said this year was concentrating on culture. So arts and culture this year, right? Yeah, so this is kind of the section here with the arts and culture. We're going to have a brother named Fats, who I've known since 1995. We met at a MIA 911 thing we were doing out at what's that little by the Hilton? What's that little outdoor theater by the Hilton? We were out there. We've been doing work together since then. We've been in the Zulu Nation together. We've been doing all kinds, from political work to hip-hop work. We used to teach the babies the history of hip-hop culture in something called ER Camp, Elemental Renaissance, trying to keep it alive. And most recently, Brother Fats has done research on a book called Offstage, which is basically the pre-history to hip-hop culture, how everything came to be, how it started, and how it kind of formulated. But this is what was going on prior to it actually, I guess, being consolidated or defined. This was where things were happening in their own pockets and the people that were responsible for that. So I just want to say, yeah, so since 95, me and his brother, and at the time, he's still a great MC, quiet as kept. He was in a band, a group called Juniper Elite at the time. I don't know if any of y'all know, you're talking about the sisters in here. His wife, Nova Kane, has the correct name as an MC. She will know you when you hear her rhyme. The first time I saw them out in the park, it was like, okay, who are these people right here? And I think we have a mutual respect since then. So, with no further ado, I'll bring Brother Fats up to talk about his book Offstage and whatever else he wants to share.
Hey, good doctor.
All right, everybody. So, hey, if we can get your attention up front again real quick, and Brother Fats.
Peace and blessings, everybody. How's everybody doing?
All right.
If I could get everybody's attention for the next 15 minutes.
Hey, we got
I ain't gonna even be that long. I know we having a long day. I know we've been here a while. This is very important, what I'm about to teach. Very important. All right? Since we're pressed for time, I will not do my whole presentation. But I just want y'all to understand something very important about hip-hop that we do not know. First of all, everybody say ho! Ho! Say ho! 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 Say ho! 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 Now scream! Ho! Okay, we here. All right. Okay. So, does anybody know that hip-hop is, how many people here know that hip-hop is a culture? So, okay, not just a genre of music. Okay. Very important.
Look at these kids.
Okay. Yeah. A few more minutes, y'all. It's really important. Everybody looks at hip hop a certain way and have been looking at it a certain way for a long time. It's because the actual culture and hip hop and culture and history of hip hop has not been being taught properly. That's my mission. That's what I do. Okay. So How many people know that there's 5 elements in hip hop? 5 primary elements. Can anybody give me one of them?
Graffiti.
Graffiti?
B-boy.
B-boying? MCing? DJing? Somebody said B-boying. How about this 5th one? This is why I'm here today. 5th one? Anybody know?
MC?
Who said it? Knowledge. Thank you. I like that. So knowledge and the other elements that y'all named constitute the 5 primary elements of hip hop. Right? Now, if hip hop is a culture, we need to look at the definition of culture right quick. So the definition of culture is a people's arts, beliefs, social behavior patterns, and the institutions that arise from those. So far in hip hop culture, we got the arts down. Y'all name b-boying, y'all name graffiti, y'all name DJing, y'all name MCing. Those are the artistic parts, but that's not an entire culture, right? By the definition I just gave, it's not an entire culture. So what do hip hop people believe in? Anybody know? Okay, that's one. That's something. How many people know what hip hop people should be doing when we're not breakdancing, DJing, MCing, or doing graffiti? Anybody know what we should be doing in the hip hop community? Advocating. I like that. I like that. Okay, so I know a lot of y'all have been told that hip hop started in 1973, correct? That's August 11, 1973. San Francisco in the Bronx. No doubt. Now I'm gonna make a correction, and I've been dealing a lot with the hip hop community with this, and only the musical aspect of hip hop started in 1973. Just the musical part. There's an entire political activation, survival, activism era of hip hop that gets mentioned, but in the sun cycle that we're in, I think it needs to put the emphasis of how hip hop actually started needs to be put in front of the children. So I say all that to say this. Graffiti, y'all say graffiti was an element of hip hop. Now, in the culture and in the history, graffiti starts in 1965 in hip hop culture. So I've often wondered, why don't we start hip hop from 1965? But in any case,
they started rapping in '73. That's when the money started coming in. So
right.
That's why they paid attention to it more.
Right, but the rapping didn't start in '73. The rapping started later. It was actually just the DJing that started in '73. But what happened was, so in 1965, we have a brother named Cornbread who started graffiti. Yeah. So I'm gonna name some very important black people, Black History Month, that are responsible for the hip hop culture that we had. There's a brother named Cornbread in 1965, and he started doing graffiti. One of the first out there in Philly to actually start writing stuff everywhere and tagging up. So he was in I guess like a mental institution for it. His parents actually thought he was going crazy for doing graffiti. So he had to make a long story short, he had a protege named Top Cat who moved to New York with what they call a gangster style of letter. And that, Philly was better than New York at tagging. Not necessarily all the graffiti, but in the beginning, Philly was better than New York. So Top Cat comes to New York and starts this gangster style of letter. That's 1965. Now, we saw the Black Panther Party up here earlier, right? Okay. So the TV was the internet of the day in the 60s. And all that Black Power movement that Brother Mike Payne is a good preface for what I'm about to get into right quick. So in 60, one other thing I like to bring to is, y'all notice that there's a difference in the generational gap in hip hop. The elders don't like the younger people. It's been going on the whole time. Anybody know where that started from? In the culture. Okay. That started from Elijah Muhammad, right? Clarence 13X, and Malcolm X both leaving the nation in 63. Why? Well, my theory is there's a difference, there's a generational gap starting. While all this revolutionary stuff is going on, we're naming college students Huey P. Newton. We're naming younger people who are coming out here wanting to move, wanting to work, wanting to be active, do a little bit things different than, say, Elijah or even early Malcolm, who were speaking. And Malcolm is the one that got everybody riled up. We are here on hip hop because of Malcolm. Just go ahead and get that. We'll go ahead and wear that out. Huey P. and them, Malcolm is the key to all of the young activism. Him getting up there, being young, being charismatic, talking to white people on the news the way he was talking was something that most of us had not seen, especially the young people. So, him and Clarence 13X were both at Temple number 7 in Harlem. The Nation of Islam was going through a lot in the 60s and the 70s. It was going through a lot. They left as a result, to make a long story short. We won't get into the negatives. So Clarence 13X starts. Anybody know the organization Clarence 13X started?
Nation of Gods and Earth.
The Nation of Gods and Earth. 5% Nation of Gods and Earth. Okay? So he starts that organization in 1964, October 10th, right? And his thing was that the children are not going to come to the mosque to get the information. The people who need this information, the young children, the people who are not going to come, we need to take it to them. So that was what he did. But he ushered in a long lineage of people who were bringing knowledge in the street to children. Young people, people who may not have had it, people who need it. That is what the 5% Nation did, aside from anything. Anybody in here ever said word, word, word up? Word is bomb. What's up, word? Anybody know where that come from? That come from the 5% Nation. Yes. That's how interwoven into our culture of hip hop that the 5%ers are. So we stop there for a second. Clarence 13X is creating a street ideology where knowledge is the order of the day. Boom. 1966, right quick, we already heard about the Black Panther Party. So now I'm a young person. I'm going to explain to you how hip hop, how knowledge and gets into hip hop culture. It starts there with Clarence 13X in Harlem. Then they watching TV for the first few times. Black Panther Party's up there. And like they said, I saw a PBS special where the news thing was new. The Black Panther Party was the best thing smoking. The leather, the berets, the revolutionary. I mean, they made TV. You don't realize that about the Black Panther Party, but that's another thing they did as far as media, TV access, and the movement. It did a lot for them. Just keep television, period. A lot of people don't even realize that. So while that happens, you have young people in the Bronx looking at the TV like, man, I didn't even realize that the people in the West Coast are going through the same thing that we're going through. So there's some young guys in the Bronx, and this is integration coming in too, okay? So integration is coming in. Martin gets killed, Malcolm gets killed, Robert Kennedy gets killed, and Clarence 13X gets killed in 1969. The children are over it. They're done. They start to, Karate Charlie, one of the leaders of the Ghetto Brothers, one of the gangs in New York, said that in a documentary, Rubble Kings, he said that once those deaths happen, like Brother Mike Payne said earlier, okay, so where's the hope? What are we going to do now? They killed Fred Hampton too. What are we going to do now? You know what I mean? So, to make a long story short, it was some young guys going to school in the Bronx. This is when the Bronx was nice. Those of y'all who know the history of hip hop, the Bronx was not always a nice place to live. But at this time, it was actually decent. The Jews, the Italians, they were still in their neighborhoods. Integration had just got passed. So some of the first black families that go into these white neighborhoods, you have these young guys coming in here. They start going to school. Their parents graduated from Fisk, got their degrees. They're like, yo, we have made it. We're appealing to white folks. Things are great. So the children go home and say, well, Mom, I went to school today, and there was these white gangs, and they were throwing Molotov cocktails at us, they were throwing bricks at us, they was calling us nigger, they were doing this stuff, and so. So that is the institution of the second disagreement in between the older generation and the younger generation in hip-hop culture, where the parents getting a little bread, but the kids in the hood like, yo, these white folks, the integration thing, they're not necessarily with it. So to make a long story short, again, junior high school 123, it's some young guys sitting at the table, they over it. They're tired of being chased, they're tired of being beat down every day. Being influenced by the Black Panther Party, it's like, man, we need to organize like the brothers over there in New York and over there in California, in Oakland. So they decided to come with a crew. They first started with the Bronx Rebel Teenagers, and they started calling themselves the Savage Seven. But as time went on, they ended up calling themselves the Black Spades. Very important organizations. Anybody ever heard of the Black Spades? Right, very few. He's from New Jersey. I know they had divisions in Jersey. So a lot of people need to understand this organization. The Black Spades is where knowledge comes into hip-hop culture. It's the vortex. Two things you need to realize when you're talking about any culture, but namely hip-hop culture. Influence, manifestation. Some people influenced hip hop culture, Black Panther Party, Clarence 13X. Then you have people who manifested the actual culture of hip hop. And that today is the Black Spades, okay? So the Black Spades became a liberation front. Their first leader was, from my research, his name was Rob O. And he dealt with the teachers of the 5% Nation. He dealt with the teachers of the Nation of Islam and, what is that, Weather Underground organization that he would do. So he had a lot of knowledge. So the Black Spades, started out in 1967 as nothing shy of a liberation front. So they weren't a gang. This is important. When you hear about the Black Spades, you're going to hear about them being a notorious gang. No, they started as a liberation front. Rob O got locked up. Then the next brother was David Hutchinson, who was an actual member of the Nation of Islam, who organized the first division of the Black Spades. And they were just like the Black Panther Party. Martial artists, community service. They did all those kinds of things. They didn't smoke, they didn't drink. And we're talking, the average age of hip hop participant is 9 to 21. So whenever I talk about anybody in hip hop in this era, they are in between, for the most part, those ages. That's important. This is why I want to teach this to our children so that they realize that, oh, okay, I don't have to know how to break to be in hip hop. That's pretty difficult. But you mean to tell me that teenagers got together, organized themselves in a neighborhood where 6,000 abandoned buildings were present. There was fires every day. The police were pretty much a gang like everybody else. Who saw, what's the movie with Denzel Washington played Frank Lucas, American Gangster? Who saw that? Did anybody see how the police was in that movie? That's New York. That's where we are. So the police would take the dope, the heroin from the drug dealer, go right around the corner, sell it to the kids. That's how deep it was. So when you see graffiti, things like that, the children of New York weren't being rebellious toward the city. They just didn't think they were getting any attention paid to them. They didn't really care. So if the police and if the city will pass laws stopping the police, the fire department, and the sewage department from coming in your neighborhood, then that means that they have issues that they had to solve that their parents were ignoring. This is important. So the children who created hip hop were kind of by themselves, for themselves. Back to self-sufficiency, doing for self. We were talking about that earlier. So these Black Spades started organizing themselves. And they started fighting back. If you watch the movie Bronx Tale, you'll see where the blacks were going to the Italian neighborhoods, get beat down. Same time frame. Well, the blacks felt the need to, I think we need to organize. We're tired of all of this happening. See, there were parts of the Bronx where blacks couldn't go, because the whites told them they couldn't go there. So that's why the Black Spades had formed to balance the oppression they were dealing with. Once again, these are children who created these organizations. We haven't even gotten to DJing yet. Isn't that interesting? Talking about hip hop. Ain't that something? So, moving on. These brothers went on to do a lot of things. So the gangs, you have Black Spades. There were over 101 gangs in New York. Can't talk about them all. These are the most significant in hip hop culture. Black Spades, Ghetto Brothers, and the Young Lords Party that you talked about earlier. Now they were Young Lords gang in Chicago. They became the Young Lords Party when they got to New York. Anybody heard of Felipe Luciano? Okay, Felipe Luciano was one of the presidents, was one of the chairmen of the New York chapter of the Young Lords Party, but he was also in the Last Poets. Whoever heard Last Poets? He was one of the original Last Poets. So that's kind of when I started researching this book and getting into how significant hip hop was in the political activism movement, and it's the children who often get ignored, kind of like how they're getting ignored today a little bit. You know what I mean? So that's what I want people to walk away with from me today, is that hip-hop did not start to entertain America. It started as a revolutionary tactic and movement of children. It's not, I'm talking, man, the Black Spades, their average ages was like 30. They were junior high school students who made a decision to be like, yo, we got to make a difference. You know what I mean? All right, and so moving on with that, that's all I really want, because I know we're pressed for time. I got actually more to talk about, but I won't do it. That, for me, This is my movement. This is my crusade. I'm tired of hip hop being treated the way it's being treated. We love to listen to it. We love to dress like it. But when it comes time to take care of the affairs of the people in our hood, hip hop is falling short. Why? Because we do not understand what I call the prehistoric era of hip hop culture. This is my book. It has, I did not know 73. This is 64 to 72. Black Panthers in here, Young Lord's Party in here, and I'm about to do I have a whole thing, a list of women in here need to be recognized. For instance, Clarence 13X's sister, when he left the nation, his sister Bernice stayed in the nation. This is how he got the lessons to create the Supreme Alphabet and the Supreme Mathematics. She gave him the lessons. Another woman, right? So, Clarence 13X's wife, Doris Smith, he was in the Korean War. Clarence 13X got back, he was a Christian. When he got back, his wife was in the nation. He was like, okay, I'll join the nation. Without her, probably don't have a 5% Nation of God's and Earth. Okay, this is my most significant part that I love about the history of hip hop. In 1971, the games were out of hand. It was off the chain. So the Ghetto Brothers were a Puerto Rican and black, but Puerto Rican ran, but Puerto Ricans, blacks, and whites were in all of these gangs. And somebody had killed one of their members. His name was Black Benji. This happened December 2nd, 1971. Now, a gang in New York that had a member killed, normally bloodshed would ensue, right? These young brothers decided, instead of doing that, well, Karate Charlie assembled the Ghetto Brothers, was ready to go to war. His brother, his other president, Yellow Benji, was like, yo, let's go see Black Benji's mom. She's mourning. We need to go see her. Went to go see her. Karate Charlie started bragging to her mom. Look, we got the army. I got him on file, mom. Yo, Ghetto Brothers ready to roll. You let me know. You know what? We can't see. You make the call. Let's go get revenge on your son. She was like, but I thought y'all made him the ambassador of peace. He broke down. If Mama Gwendolyn Cornell does not say this to Karate Charlie, we probably don't have hip hop culture. Because they did a gang peace treaty 6 days after instead. And that is why we have breaking, graffiti, DJing, and MCing. None of that was going on. And some things had to happen first in our neighborhoods and our communities before we can start partying. Does everybody understand that? We have to take care of our communities first. And I say this today to tell y'all that hip hop culture started as a young revolutionary organization. I'm talking about young.
Right there.
Young. His age, in the street, battling with the police. They fought the police. White gangs would come fight the black spades. The police would jump in. That's how deep it was. So black spades start beating up the white gang, the police take the black spades weapons. And then the black spades still beating up them, now the police about to jump in. Young. We talking policemen fighting children his age. This is hip hop. This is how hip hop started. Kool Herc is not even in this part of the Bronx. We're in the South Bronx we're talking about. Kool Herc is the West. So after all of this going down with that gang peace treaty that the Ghetto Brothers put together, that became the catalyst of the hip hop that we know today. After this is when Kool Herc over there on the West started throwing his parties. But Kool Herc was not the first person in New York to throw block parties. Very important. You got a DJ by the name of Disco King Mario. He's an influencer. He's not one who manifested the culture. But Disco King Mario, in July 1973, not August 11th, but July 1973, did what was called the 21 Days of Summer, where the city of New York let them play music outside for 3 weeks straight.
He was a motivator.
Right. Not a lot of people know that. He was also a black spade. The Black Spades are responsible for the early DJs of hip hop. You had the Chuck City Crew. That was an organization that they had. And they had started doing these DJs, but they were also, while they were partying, keeping junkies away, still being politically active and being politically correct. So that's what the Black Spades was doing. Now, and he was a member of the Zulu Nation, which was the organization that kind of came out of that. And I will mention this, and I'll pretty much get ready to go. I think I said all I need to say. Because if I try to get into the elements and teach y'all, everybody that was in each element that's black will be here a long time. So basically what I wanted to say was this. As the black slave that y'all know of that became this notorious gang happened when everybody got frustrated. So Africa Bambaataa, what he did in the 70s was made sure that we in hip hop understood the lessons and kept the lessons going. So he is primarily responsible for, in the 70s, keeping the knowledge in hip hop. So I leave y'all today with, please, spread the word that hip hop did not start off as a genre of music, and the hip hop that people are calling hip hop today is not hip hop. What you're listening to is rap music. Hip hop does not and cannot exist without a DJ. So, if you see any rapper out here without a DJ behind him, they're rapping. It's not hip hop. It's not a scene. Sorry, that's just the rules that were laid down on that. So, please spread this word. People say hip hop on the radio, like, nah, that's actually rap music. You know, hip hop actually started like this, thus, and so. So, y'all can help me on my campaign. I plan, this is a textbook. I have a syllabus with this. I plan on putting this in schools. I'm writing a revised version. I'm also finishing up another book called The Breakdown Files, where I break down other misconceptions of hip hop history that we need to understand. I know a lot of people may not think that our music and the history of our music is important, but this music that our people are putting out now is a result of them not knowing the culture of not just hip hop, but music. The R&B and the reggae and how all these things came into fruition. Okay? So I love y'all. Thank y'all very much for y'all time. I'm selling these books in the back here for $20. The book is entitled Off Stage, The Culture of Hip Hop Before the Elements. This book is making great ground in the hip hop community, the hip hop scholastic community. I've been on a couple of panels. No one is doing this. I'm the only one. So down here in VA, y'all can take pride in it. It's a hard concept. It's a hard concept for people in New York who create hip hop to grasp this part here. This is the living. I love y'all. Thank y'all very much. Thank you, Brother Dawood, for having me. And you know the work we done, man. This is all culminating into that or whatever. So that is how Al Islam is pivotal in hip hop. Clarence 13, X5% Nation, Nation of Islam, and people from these organizations influencing the black space to become a revolutionary movement. Peace and blessings.
Yeah. He's just getting his
All right, we got one last person left, and we're staying in the culture part. It's going to be Ron Flood. He's going to be talking about the history of, I guess, black representation in comic books. So once he gets set up. So a little bit more what Fast was talking about. Almost all the language and words you hear in hip hop, even just the greeting of peace, that comes from the community. It comes from the 5%. It comes from the Nation of Islam. It comes from Islam. You know, a lot of people say that Islam is the unofficial religion of hip hop. So many, especially because of its foundation in New York and heavy Islamic culture there, it has always been underneath in the culture. It's always been. You'd be amazed at how many of the brothers that are MCs and Muslims, DJs that are Muslims, and B-boys that are Muslims. It's a lot. A lot of times you talk to brothers and be like, oh, he's a Muslim. Oh, that brother's a Muslim. Oh, but you know he was a Muslim. So. Oh, you got to work on all these. All right, you ready for this?
I'm ready, man.
All right, so we got Ron Flood here. He's going to do the black representation in comic books, and so I'm excited about this. I've been waiting for this all day.
Right. Thanks for sticking in there with me. I know it's been a long day. I can't promise you that I'm going to be very short because this is very important to me. And then my goal is to have you guys excited about this, and then also have a few objectives. One, I want you to actually think about arts, visual arts, right? And then also, I'm going to invite you out to an event that I'm having in August. And then, most importantly, how you view the arts. There's a lot of lexicon that jumps around when it comes to representation within mediums. I feel like this made sense for me to be last because the Black Panther Party, talking about media and how it kind of like evolved over the times, and comic books is pretty much a dead medium, right? So it's history, right? It's a lot of history wrapped in this stuff. I saw an article online yesterday that Best Buy is not even selling any movies anymore, like physical copies. So we went from radios to books to VHSs to DVDs to now we're going all digitized, right? And so that's super important. Like it's super important to actually have physical art, like physical art. So much so that it's an investment, a monetary and then also a cultural investment, right? Like hold on to the monetary and cultural investment. All right, so tell you a little bit about myself first. Then I'm going to explain art. I'm just going to define it, and then there's 4 categories of art, and then I'm going to give you a timeline of comic books, the different periods of comic books, and contributors to comic books, black folks and black caricatures that that are very like offensive, and how it grows over time, and how it really didn't grow over time at the same time, right? So I'm Deron Flood. I'm from Norfolk. I was born in Brooklyn. I know he's going, yeah, but I'm from Norfolk. Yeah, I'm definitely from Norfolk. My background is athletics. I've competed at every level, from the lowest level to being a college All-American, high school All-American, national champion, all of that. I currently own a gym in Norfolk, Virginia, 816 East 25th Street. I'm moving to 6,000 square feet next month, so growth is growing. I'm really proud of that. But while I was growing up, I had this duality about myself. I was a big time nerd, but I suppressed that because if you guys are older than me, you know what it was like to kind of like be a nerd back in the days. You get joked, people beat you up for it. So like I had this duality that I was living. On one end, I was this jock that was super amazing. Nobody could beat me in anything athletic. And then on the other side, I was in the nerd culture. And so again, because one took, priority over the other, I kind of like hid it from everybody. My teammates kind of knew about it because whenever they was talking about superheroes and stuff like that, they would start arguing. They'd be like, Floyd, yo, who can be who? And it's always, I got to break it down. So one thing, I own over 60,000 comic books, right? That's not an exaggeration, 60,000 comic books. It is my largest asset. My comic book collection is worth $2.1 million.
Are you serious, bro?
Definitely $2.1 million.
That's plastic.
And I don't think that I paid over a lifetime $30,000 for it.
What are comic books?
Let me do my thing. I'm cooking. So yeah, I didn't spend over a lifetime more than $30,000 for it. The most money that I've spent on one comic book was $1,000, and I did that when I was 16. I cut grass the entire summer, saved up $500, and then I waited till the Christmas time, and I asked my mom for another $500 because I wanted my favorite superhero of all time, and it is literally my most valuable thing that I own monetarily, and I'll get into that. So when it comes to comic books, they're broken up into ages. The very first age of comic books is called the Platinum Age. All right? And the Platinum Age started from 1868 and it lasted to 1937. Blackness and black folks were almost non-existent during this period. The very first instant, I got y'all undivided attention. Yeah, I'm doing a good job. You know, you got a little. All right, so 1901. Poor little Muse. Y'all know what a pickaninny is, right? Everybody, you know what a pickaninny is. It's offensive, right? It's like the little dolls, super black skin, the red looks Sambo-ish, right? That was the first time that blackness was introduced in a comic form. And it was Poor Little Muse in 1901. We kind of kept that same really, really offensive imagery onto the next instance when blackness was introduced. Well, not so much introduced, but the next wave of blackness. Have you guys ever heard of the Defenders of the Earth with Flash Gordon? Mm-hmm. Yeah, y'all heard of Flash Gordon, right? So he had a sidekick that was Lothar, a black guy, right? So again, they carried on with this racist imagery of characters in comic books, and Lothar was actually introduced in 1934. The problem with Lothar, and we're going to evolve, one, he was a sidekick. Two, he was this big ape-like guy that was super dumb. Like, super dumb. Like, super dumb. And so, you know, we're going to get better, though. We're going to get better. But he was literally the first black superhero that was introduced to the medium. Distinction matters a lot. I'm going to say a lot of things that's going to sound similar, but they're not the same, and it matters a lot, and I'll explain why distinctions matter, okay? So he was the first black superhero ever in, like, comic universe, right? We're going to go on now to the Golden Age, and this is where things really start to get spicy. You're going to recognize a lot of the names in the Golden Age. I don't think some of the players, the major players, not so much, but you'll know about a lot of the characters from the Golden Age. So the Golden Age is when people like Batman, Superman, so the Golden Age starts from 1937 to 1952. I gotta get my notes out because it gets really icky in here. So, I'm not gonna ask you. Who's your favorite superhero ever?
Favorite superhero ever? That's tough, but probably Spider-Man.
Okay.
It's me, man.
Give me the Hulk. The Hulk. Give me one. Okay, the Hulk.
Maybe Flash.
Really? Why? That's interesting.
He was always Flash.
Mama, who's your favorite superhero of all time?
That's what I'm talking about.
You know, y'all. Sir, who's your favorite character of all time?
Oh, Batman.
Good. I'm glad I was trying to pull that out. So, do you remember what comic book series he was introduced in? No? Say it again?
You referring to Batman?
Yep, Batman. Does anybody know?
What was the
Say
question?
it again?
Well, comic book.
Yeah, so the comic book, the name of the comic book series that Batman was introduced in.
DC?
DC stands for what?
Detective Comics.
Who said that?
Detective.
Yep, Detective Comics. So Detective Comics was introduced in 1937. That's super important, all right? Detective Comics was introduced, Detective Comics #1 was introduced in 1937. A black man was on that book by the name of E.C. Stoner. He was responsible for the prototype of Batman, but never ever got any credit for it. Ever. DC Comics started on issue #1 with him, and he created two characters that he actually did get credit for. And you know why he didn't get credit for Batman down the line? Way too profitable. Way too profitable. Way too profitable. So that happened in 1937. Detective Comics 27 is when Batman comes around. Detective Comics 27 is when he's introduced. Detective Comics 27 is Batman introduced. Let's just say Batman. Sorry, check my notes real quick. So E.C. Stoner is responsible for basically DC Comics' first comic book was made by a black man. I want y'all to keep that here forever. That's super important. So the whole DC universe, Batman, Superman, Flash, all of that, a black man is responsible for that. Please hold on to that. If y'all don't hold on to nothing else, hold on to that. All right? So E.C. Stoner is also considered the very first black man who started comics, period. So he's a major player in this whole comic book world creating thing, okay? We're going to go on to 1940. There was a comic book company called Dale Comics that went under. But he also was a part of starting his own first comic book company. He's like a hero of mine. Like he's got no credit for nothing, died broke, everything. It's madness, all right? All right, so he started, and then he also started in 1940, Dale Comics started, which was an independent comic company that he started, and he introduced a superhero called Phantasmo. There's three major players in the golden age when it comes to black writers and illustrators. You have E.C. Stoner, which is considered the first. You have A.C. Hollingsworth, which is considered the second. Hollingsworth. And then you have Matt Baker, which is like super important too. I'm trying not to make this so long. I got so much notes and I'm getting excited. Wow. All right, so we're going to travel on to 1947. This is important too. A comic book called All Negro Comics came out in 1947. You can only imagine why that's important. This is the first time that black folks got together and created a comic book exclusively with black characters in it. And it's called All Negro Comics #1. It is literally the only comic book that I don't own, that I would die over, literally, because it's so important. So All Negro Comics #1 started. And again, distinctions matter. So please know that All Negro Comics was the first black comic that was created by black people with exclusively black characters. All of those points matter because as we travel on, things start to get convoluted and it's going to sound like I said the same thing 2 and 3 times over, okay? 1948. World's Finest. Number 17. World's Finest #17 is a DC comic book that featured Batman and Superman. This is the first time that black people ever shared a comic book with Batman and Superman. This book is considered the most disruptive comic book ever because all the attention is always on Batman and Superman. But E.C. Stoner decided that he was going to introduce a story about black army people and how they had to come home and face discrimination after going out in the world and trying to fight. People tried to burn this book. It's literally called the most disruptive comic book of all time. I own it. I brought it too, so you know. I'm gonna do one more comic and the golden age, and I'm gonna move on. I really like this one. So Weird Fantasy, 1952. Weird Fantasy number 8. 18. This will be the last one I'll do with Golden Age. So Weird Fantasy number 18 was it was disruptive as well because it played on like a sci-fi theme. It was about an astronaut who you never ever saw him until the very last panel. There's an astronaut that goes to like a robotic world, and basically he goes out to the robotic world because they were slavers, right? They were slavers. And they were talking about potentially coming to Earth and, enslaving them as well. And on the very, very last panel, he takes off his helmet as a black person and basically shares his personal experience about discrimination, oppression, and all that. And so personally, I like that story a whole lot more than World's Finest 17. Because it gets a little too political when it comes to like the Army and the Navy stuff, whereas this one can kind of hit everybody, all black people, as opposed to, just kind of involving the military in it. So Weird Fantasy 18 is also another extremely disruptive comic book. And again, people were trying to burn these things. Like editors, black writers and editors were trying to, preserve these things. And I say all of this to say, like, I go to auctions and I'm usually the only black person there to buy stuff like this. I don't play when it comes to stuff like that.
How much would a copy one of those go for?
Thousands. Like lots of thousands, not like 2 or 3 thousand. Yeah, so and I'm usually I'm the only black person, and I'm usually about 20 years younger than everybody else that's there. And so when I talked about value when it comes to art, cultural value, and then also monetary value, one of the things that I like to tell people all the time when it comes to our art, there's people who value our stuff more than us, and it's literally a microcosm of how the world works. We see people who are not us pretty much taking our culture and taking it for ourselves. And it's very disheartening because, again, I try not to get too militant because when it comes to topics like this, I don't like it. You know what I mean? And so, yeah. So I'm gonna move on. Where's
Oh, can I get a picture of
Yep.
Right there. Where?
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate you guys for being patient. I feel like my time here kind of made sense because we had all these, Black Panther. It just makes sense for me that I tie everything together. All right, so we're gonna move on to the Silver Age, where things get a little more, like visually, things get better as far as like representation, and then also black folks' involvement. It isn't just like 1 or 2 of us doing it. More people get involved, and because more of us get more involved, the representation gets better because you're not gonna write yourself looking any kind of way for the world to see. And so things get better as we start to involve ourselves more within the medium. So we're gonna travel on to the Silver Age. And that starts 1965 and it ends in 1970. Whole lot goes on during that time. So in 1965, we have a book called Lobo #1. And this is the first time that a black character, singular character, gets its own self-titled comic. That's important for a number of reasons. You don't want to be grouped into people if you have a lot to offer as an individual. words matter in media all the time. One of the things that I've really learned, especially being around Ishmael, what people call you, your name, all of that stuff matters. My last name matters. My last name sometimes doesn't matter. And so, like, it was really important for black folks, especially black characters, to have their own book. Not just be Detective Comics or not just be all Negro comics, saying, okay, this is a singular person and it's important that this singular person exists just like Batman does. Because Batman got 1 million books, Superman got 1 million books. Prior to 1965, a singular black character didn't have their own book with their name on it. That's wildly important when you're thinking about psychology and how you view yourself, because art's a lot of things, right? Art is imitation, art is how you see yourself, art is history, art is the future as well. So being able to see yourself, your whole self, as a one person and how you're viewed amongst millions of eyes matters. So prior to 1965, we've never had a superhero with its own comic book. 1966, we all gonna be familiar with this one. Fantastic Four.
Uh-oh, there we go.
Right. Now we're warming up. First Black Panther. Contrary to popular belief, he is the second black superhero in Marvel Comics. Before him, and I should have wrote that one down, there was an African prince with shaman powers named Waku, Prince of the Bantu. He predated Black Panther. In Africa, another African. That's super important. I own that book too and I wrote it. So the second hero. Second, don't let nobody tell y'all he the first anymore. It's not the truth. 1967, Black Manta. Y'all watch Aquaman. So this is important because he's the first black supervillain to be introduced in mainstream comics. Mainstream comics is Marvel Comics and DC. They got a lock on everything. Anything else is just kind of, we call it independent. All right? 1968. Nick Fury. Y'all know who that is. Did we watch Avengers?
Oh, yeah.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. number 2. First black supervillain in Marvel. And his name is Centurious. His real name is Dr. Noah Black. Also, the first doctor, scientific doctor in mainstream comic books. Prior to that, everybody was dumb and
First black doctor?
first black doctor in mainstream comics. That's huge. Because again, art is how you see yourself. And if you keep viewing yourself negatively all the time, or if you're Lothar, big and dumb, you can't inspire yourself. Oh man, you know, a doctor, that's cool. It's cool to be a doctor. So first black doctor, that's very important as well. 1969, Vampirella. Number 1. First, Billy Graham. Billy Graham is considered the most important black artist in all of comic books, literally because of Black Panther. He has the record for illustrators, black, white, or indifferent, for continuous issues without stopping. He illustrated 192 continued Black Panther comic books from start to finish, and it's still the record today. A black man got on Black Panther and did that. 192, continuous, without doing another comic book in between or any of that. So he holds the record for the most consecutive projects done back to back to back to back. Staying on 1969, Captain America. #117, first Falcon. This is important because he's the first African American superhero. So prior to 1969, all of the black contributors to the medium were African. That's important.
Wow.
1969, Falcon gets introduced for the first time. He's an African American, right? So comic books been rocking out for almost 70 years before an African American gets contributed to it. Representation matters, right? And so just think about all the black kids reading prior to 1969. Right? Yeah. Got two more in 1970. And then we're going to move on. 1970, Eben, #1. Super important. Holy Grail book. First black superhero written and drawn by a singular black person. So he did all the work. This is very special to me for a number of reasons. The story behind this, and I know him personally, he got tired of the representation. He decided to do himself. He worked for a newspaper company in San Francisco. He used all of their equipment to produce his book. He produced 200 books. 100 of them got wet, at least that's what his story is. 100 survived. 98 of these books are in libraries or universities across the country. 2 people own this book. I'm one of them, and he's the other one, and I brought it with me today. So this is the first time one black man did everything by himself, from the printing to the writing to the illustrating. Funded it all himself. He did it all himself, and he did it at the newspaper shop that he was working in. And I know him personally, and he's going to be coming to my convention, so y'all got to come out so y'all can get in.
We'll get into it.
1970, DC, Teen Titans. We should be familiar with Teen Titans.
All the way back in.
Teen Titans #26 is First Mal Duncan. And he's the first black superhero in DC Comics. First black superhero in DC Comics. All right, so we're clear. 66 was Marvel, 70 was DC as far as first black superheroes. All right, so 4 years in between the two. Huge independent book right here. The first time ever a black superhero get its own title comic book. Now, again, I want you to understand the distinctions here. Black Panther doesn't even get this until the 80s. The self-title. We don't get a Black Panther comic book until the 80s. That's why that's so important. Do you understand why the distinctions matter? So like and his only lasted like 3 issues. But if you were a black character, you got jumbled in into Captain America or Superman.
As an appearance.
As an appearance. You were a guest feature, but you could never stand alone. You see why that's important, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, so I'm gonna do one more, and then I'm gonna show y'all my stuff and start bragging about it.
Don't erase this yet.
Hey, get a picture of it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you trying to, hey, I want you on it too.
Okay.
Gotcha.
I have a question while you're erasing that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, some of those comics I've heard of, most of them I haven't. I had a brother. He used to read those comics. I would consider them comics for boys or stuff like that. So I didn't read those comics. I read the girly stuff, like I think it was Archie and his gang, something like that. And it wasn't no black people in there.
Right.
If it was one, and it was their token friend or something
Right,
like
right,
that.
right.
But those are the kinds that I read. Those, I mean, I might have picked it up. That's for boys,
Right.
and that kind of thing. So were there African American characters introduced in other than superhero comics?
I'm gonna get to it.
Okay.
It takes a while. Yeah, it takes a while. We get into it.
Okay,
And then
okay.
the one, well, we'll talk about
Okay,
it. Because I think
okay.
it's my first one. No, my second one. And we get there. Yeah, so women in comics, it's just like life. That's why art matters, right? Again, it's imitation, it's reflection, it's all of these things. If men are being introduced, you know, in the 60s, you know women ain't gonna get introduced until that's just how it works, you know what I mean? And so like we pick it up in the Bronze Age.
Okay.
This will be my last one, and I'm gonna show you guys what I brought. All right, so the Bronze Age. Bronze. From 1970 to 1985. 1971. Let's start here. Bill Ryder, #1. This is the first time a black female superhero introduced. So 1971 is the first time that a black female superhero is introduced, and her name is Butterfly. In 1972, who is familiar with Friday Foster? Pam Grier, you remember that? So that's a super important comic book as well. So Friday Foster #1 is the first time a black female character self-titled book. So again, going back to that importance of having like an identifier, a singular black female being able to stand alone within her own comic book. We get that with Friday Foster. That later on becomes a movie with Pam Grier, right? So again, these types of things are what's like within the black comic community. There's only like 10 of us. Brothers gonna be reading comic books. But it's things like this that matters a lot to us because there's a lot of like, okay, we got our own thing. We're not, you know what I'm saying? We can stand alone. So Friday Foster starts 1972. And then here's another one that you guys are definitely going to be familiar with. Luke Cage. #1. And so this is the first self-titled for Marvel. So we had Lobo, but Marvel didn't introduce a character on its own to stand on its own until 1972. So even though Black Panther was first introduced, he still didn't have his own comic book. He was just a feature character. And he doesn't get his own comic book until the 80s. Luke Cage was the first person to have its own. You can go up to the comic book shop and be like, bro, let me get a Luke Cage book. So he was the first black character to have his own book in Marvel. Okay? 1973. Luke Cage again. Number 5. First black female supervillain. Black Mariah. Y'all watched the MCU, the Netflix Luke Cage before, right? Yeah, so you remember Black Mariah. She's the first black supervillain in Marvel Comics. I got 3 more. 1975 is Marvel Premiere. Number 21. First black female superhero in Marvel. And it's not Storm, everybody thinks it is. It's actually Misty Knight. Again, if you've watched like the Daredevil show or the Luke Cage show, y'all saw Misty Knight there. She's actually the first black female superhero in Marvel Comics. The last 2. 1977, you guys will be familiar with this one as well. Black Lightning. Number 1, super significant book. First self-titled DC book. This book is super important for a number of reasons. Obviously the self-titled part, but they also recruited a 15-year-old kid to do all of the artwork, a black kid to do all of the artwork. Until this day, he is the youngest contributor to mainstream comics ever. His name is Trevor Egan. So, 15 years old. So he's co-created Black Lightning, and his name is Trevor Egan.
Is he still alive?
Yes, he's gonna be at my convention too. And so this one, I'm not gonna spell it all out. Super B. The B is explicative. First black superhero titled book. So the distinction between Friday Foster and Super B is like the B word, the bad word. This is a superhero, and she was just a character without superpowers. That matters. What we find out about black women, especially when they're introduced, hypersexualized. The very first black superhero comic book, she was nude on the front cover. And all of these women here were almost nude. It doesn't come until around 98 before women started to put clothes on. And so they hypersexualized all the way up until the 90s. And so this is the Bronze Age. There is 3 more ages after that. There's the Copper Age, there's the Dark Age, and then there's the modern / MCU age. MCU is pretty much what we're seeing now, and so comic books really started to spike after that. I'm gonna show you guys some of my stuff, and then I'm gonna tell you about my Comic-Con. And I'm going to tell you the value of these things because it's important for black people especially to not only enjoy our stuff, but to also invest in it. I hate that I'm always, it's not sometimes, I'm always the only black person when it comes to buying our own art. Beyond comic books, I collect all kind of African American stuff. I got Negro League memorabilia, authentic stuff, and that's why I said this. I think it was like good for me to come last. I collect coins with black folks on it. A lot of people don't know that a lot of our heroes are on U.S. currency, literally. George Washington Carver, Booker T, like literally on U.S. currency. You could take a dime and we'll have a black person on it and you can go spend it just like it's nothing. Beyond that, I collect a lot of artwork and I collect first edition novel books as well. But I'm gonna show you some of my comics. I'll start with the art first. So I was able, Trevor Martin Eaton, the child prodigy. This is an actual original art piece from the very first book, and you can't even put a price on it. Literally. So he did this when he was a child in New York, I believe. So this is the original. This is a one of one. Yeah, so when he was creating the comics and the storyboards, this is what he used, and this is what he submitted to DC, and then they did all the inking and stuff like that to come up with the comic book. So this is like one of my prized possessions right here.
Is he still in the business?
Say it again?
Is he still in the business?
No, those guys be so bitter and disgruntled. You know, they paid him $50 to, you know how it works.
Gotta create your own.
So here's one that you guys will definitely enjoy. This is Superman versus Muhammad Ali. This is the first time that Superman lost a fight to a black person in comics. Look. So that's 1977? 1977?
Wow. He should have lost.
When was that?
1977?
Oh yeah, he should have lost.
Alright, so I'm going to get into some of my comics here. So this is my oldest comic. I talked about the golden age and Dale Comics. This was the introduction to Dale Comics, and this is E.C. Stoner art. This is 1938, Funnies number 45, and E.C. Stoner contributed to the very first superhero, and that's Phantasmo right here on the cover. Estimated 40 grand.
Oh, 40 grand, what do you mean?
$40,000.
What?
That bookie over here.
Okay, y'all lock the door. Lock the door.
And so the Evan book that I was, so here's the Evan book that I was telling you about with the guy who worked at the newspaper printing company. This is it. This is one of two that's out in the wild. The other 90-something is in libraries and universities across the country. So I'm one of two people who privately own this book. The other is the creator.
How do you preserve it?
You can use the table to set your books and we ain't gonna
Put it on the table right there.
So this is my holy grail. This is the book that I told you that I cut grass for, and then my mom put some extra money in it. I think this is like the 5th book that I've ever owned. And so I have a lot of graded books, right? And so graded books, you send these books off to a grading company and they give you a numerical grade to rate the condition of these books. This is the only comic book with this grade on it in existence. There's a lot of Black Panther books, but none of them is graded as high as this. This book right here is worth $200,000. So this is Fantastic Four number 52. First appearance of Black Panther.
I'm collecting the wrong stuff.
Yeah, well, say that again? Yeah. Well, they will.
Yeah, that's good.
You know, you get all these insurances and stuff like that. So, yeah, this is definitely my most valuable comic book.
I gotta ask. It's a more question. Well, do you have kids? So I have to ask, like, is there like an event, you know, when you transition, like what do you want done with all these items that you collect?
Well, I'm gonna have kids now.
No, I didn't mean it like that, but I'm just saying, like, cause I'm really curious, cause well, no, I asked for a reason because, yeah, like, yeah, is there a plan, like, what, cause this is a lot of history that's been collected, and we know that throughout history, a lot of times people collect stuff, and then when they pass on, it gets lost in the ether, right? So that's kind of.
So there's three things that I do to preserve my collection. I pay a lot of money in insurance every year, just in case somebody steals it gets broken, something happens. So I have a really nice insurance premium on it. Beyond that, I have a will. And so like right now, my will, my collection goes to my nieces.
Can I be your niece?
So here's Avengers number 87, and again, it has that terminal grade. Right now, I think there's only 6 of these in existence. This is the origin of Black Panther, and this dropped in 1971. So value-wise, probably like seven grand. And so again, like these books that I'm showing you, I got when I was a kid, and I ain't paid none of it. Not even like who has money to, like to just. Even if you did, I'm not spending on a comic book like that. You know what I mean? So here's the first Black superhero in Marvel, and again, I got awarded the highest grade. There's 8 of these in existence. So this is Black Mariah's first appearance. And she dropped 1973. This is about $3,500 right here.
In the wrong business.
Definitely. All those comic books my brother had.
So I brought the very first African American in comic books here. So this is the Captain America 117 that I was telling you about. The first appearance of Falcon. This one is an 8.5, so probably like 2,000. And the first Black supervillain in comics, Centurious. We talked about him as well, 1968.
You say his name again?
Centurious.
He's a black man.
So yeah, he's also the first Doctor in comic books as well. So the first Doctor and first supervillain. So super important. This book about $4,500. Also, I brought Miss Knight with me, and again, she's the first Black superhero in Marvel Comics. 1975. This one is about $2,500 as well.
And these are all the books you talk about.
Right, he got him. Yeah, you see what he did there?
You know, I gotta talk.
That's how we do something, man. Got this presentation.
I thought this one was cool. This is a new comic book. This one dropped in 2013. 2023. And this is the first time Shaka Zulu, Fred Hampton, Malcolm X, and Martin Luther King were all in the same book. So this is Icon versus Hardware. It's a new book, so it's probably worth like $200. But I just thought it was really cool to have like all of those
20 years is
guys.
gonna be worth a lot
Oh
more.
yeah, for sure. So they're all in the corner right there.
What's getting good rating now, boy?
It's a new book though.
Oh yeah, I don't know. When it comes to the quality of the book, the condition of the book, if it ain't, I mean, you know what I mean.
How did you come upon that?
I still collect. So I'm current. So like I have a pull list that yeah, well I let them know when I say, hey, I'm interested in putting these books in my pull list, and then I just read them up.
You get most of your stuff from auctions, nothing from like thrift stores.
Oh, I've done that too. Listen, whenever I go out of town, like I go to antique shops. I do all that. So again, I collect more than just comics. Like I got all types of
But
stuff.
most of the books are from auctions and that.
Yes, yes, sir.
So how did you get into it?
My brother. You know, you just try to be like your brother. I stuck with it. He kind of got out of the game.
I know you were good down.
Oh yeah.
My bank camera doesn't work. Yeah, my bank camera doesn't work.
Yes, it does. It chooses one.
I'm like right there.
Alright, so this book right here, they call this one the modern Holy Grail. So this character right here is probably the most important character, modern character. And the last one that sold for $40,000. And so this is Ultimate Fallout #4, the first appearance of Miles Morales. So the Black Spider-Man is like everywhere right here. Yeah, so this one sold for 40 grand.
I got that.
What year is
I
that?
got that. I got most of the Miles Morales stuff.
What year is that?
Oh yeah? 2011.
So the whole X-Men, Malcolm X, that's real, correct? The Malcolm X, that's not. So how did that come about? I'm sorry, y'all.
People not being, they don't read enough.
Okay.
They see commonalities and they just run with it. But
Okay.
it's
So
no
Stan Lee didn't.
No.
Oh, that hurts, man.
He wanted it to be true, right?
Well, thank you for shedding that light.
So here's Black Lightning #1, and again, this is the first self-titled DC comic book with that child prodigy. I showed you the original art there. So this is his first comic book, 1977. One thing that I really liked about Black Lightning, DC really tiptoed around politics, especially when it came to topics of race. But he was a social worker, and the Avengers asked him to join. And he basically told the Avengers, "Y'all don't do nothing for us. Why would I join the Avengers?" And I thought that was so cool. I thought that was so cool. So he became a favorite of mine really, really early. So yeah, this is Black Lightning #1.
Nice. What do those numbers stand for? The 9.0 to 9.8?
So this is the condition of the book. So if it's a 9.8, it's a perfect copy.
Okay.
How much is that one worth?
Probably about 7,500.
Oh, crazy.
I'll tell you, I paid $30 for this book. I know how much I paid for all of this. I paid $30 for this book. $30.
So how would you find the value of a comic book?
So you find a fair market value on auction sites. So these types of stuff sell all the time. Like there's auctions all the time. And so what I normally do is I take the sold listings and I'll take like 5 and then I'll just get the average. And so if I wanted to sell something right then and there, because collectible markets fluctuate just like every other market, every other
like
financial market.
Yeah. Oh,
Everything goes up and down.
Okay.
The biggest driver right now has been TV and movies. So like Fantastic Four, they just announced that, you know, their whole cast is going to be there. So what you see now is all Fantastic Four books are trending because people are trying to get ahead. So all of this stuff is skyrocketing. So like my Black Panther book,
Right.
before it was probably worth 150. Now it's probably worth 200. It gets that drastic.
Okay.
Yeah, it gets that drastic.
Okay.
Let me show you about 3 or 4 more, and I'm gonna hold you up. So this is Blade, first appearance of Blade, 1973.
Wow.
1973, first appearance of Blade.
I didn't know he went back that far.
And this is Green Lantern Special #1. This is the first time racism was addressed internationally and domestically in a comic book. And it was a man by the name of James Owsley, black man, of course. So, you know, you see the end apartheid there. Apartheid is racism there.
With the fist.
Yeah, so this
Nice.
stuff like this just didn't happen in mainstream comics.
Another disruption.
Was that distributed in the
Oh,
United
yeah,
States?
yeah. Say that again?
I said, was that distributed in the United States?
Yeah, it was, but you know, a lot of times shop owners, if it came to it, they would throw it away because they didn't want, you know what I mean? So,
What's the work on that one?
say it again.
What's the work on that one?
They don't have some. So for me, because I'm always looking at sold listings and trying to like this because it's so rare, it never sells. So like I don't be noticing. You know what I mean?
Prices, go ahead and say it.
I literally don't. Like any other one. Like I haven't seen one of these sold maybe in a couple of years. So I wouldn't know ballpark. I wouldn't even know what I could sell something like this
I have
for.
a question.
Yes, ma'am.
As far as passing this information down to the youth, do you have like a club or something that you want to start?
I'm gonna get to that. I'm gonna get to that. So, I'm a dreamer, right? I'm a big dreamer. Like I literally think I can do whatever I want, however I want, whenever I want. But I also understand that it takes action. Like action is probably the most important thing when it comes to this thing. So I figured out early on that there's people who are just like me, or if they're not like me, they're interested in the medium. So what I did about 10 years ago was I created a virtual space called Blurred Core, and it's basically for black nerds who are interested in comic books, anime, or anything nerdy. When I started it 10 years ago, it started out with like 3 or 4 of us. Now there's 40,000 people incubated, 40,000 black people incubated.
Can you write on the board the name of it?
Nerd core. Or blurred core.
Blurred Core stands for Black Nerd.
Pass forward now.
You a nerd?
Sometimes. So it's Blurred Core. We're 40,000 strong now. It's been about 10 years now. So the evolution of that was me starting an actual comic convention. And so I've pretty much gathered a lot of the major players within the industry, headliners and things like that, and we're actually bringing an actual comic convention to Norfolk, August 17th and 18th. I have people who have worked on, like, written for the Spider-Verse movie that you guys have seen. Everybody should have seen it, right? So my partner is actually one of the writers for the movie. And he's gathered a lot of his black talent that works in Hollywood, and we're bringing it to Norfolk. Beyond that, we're going to have creative writing workshops there, design workshops there. We're going to have video game tournaments. We'll have cosplay and all of that other stuff. So, say it again.
Where do you know?
At the Sheridan. At the Sheridan. Oh, let me write that down. I'll write it down for you. Yeah, it's August 17th and 18th.
And reserve it in the hotel.
Yeah.
He said, what's the plan? I'm telling you, we gotta do something to this brother here. Look, his back turned.
I'm gonna help you carry your stuff out today, brother.
So
He's very strong and he's very fast, so we're gonna have to hit him real hard.
So you said you've already confirmed the hotel and everything, and the venue. So I was thinking, I was thinking, can you kind of own it?
Why?
Well, take it to like Norfolk State Hotel.
Oh, so
They have a 30,000 seat stadium.
Right. So I'm actually in the process of getting all my promo materials and things like that. So they have a few events at Norfolk State that I'm gonna be vending at. So beyond just like putting money into marketing and social media and stuff like that, I'm gonna be on campus spreading the word. Yeah.
You do Comic-Con too?
Gotta go back to Newport News flood out of Georgia.
Thank you. It's so good to see you too.
Yeah. Where do you currently get your pulls from?
Local heroes.
Local heroes.
Yeah.
Greg's pretty cool. I remember.
Yeah, that's my guy, man.
Greg's
What's the admission charge, do you know?
No, we ain't got there
You
yet.
don't mess with that.
Yeah, well, I do, but we haven't put anything. It's so far out. Say it again.
Not really. That's not far out.
Well, I got a whole lot going on. So I'm just trying to take things one stage at a time. You know, I'm trying to move my gym, and I'm doing a lot. So August 17th through 18th, Sheridan Hotel. We also have an Instagram page that I would encourage all of you guys to follow if you want to stay, you know, abreast to like the announcements and things like that. So it's just Atlantic Comic Con. That's our Instagram page. We also have a Facebook group. It's called Atlantic Comic Con. As far as like the talent that's going to be there, I'm trying to get voice actors. I have finally gotten into contact with, have you guys seen the Boondocks?
Oh, yes.
So Uncle Ruckus is a voice actor. I'm working on getting him out there. And then also my college professor, I'm working on getting her because she was actually a really big inspiration for me because I've been in and out of comic books all the time. And she was the one who was like, look, that's all you. I know you love sports. I know, but like you're passionate about this, like even more so than sports. And so I'm getting her to come down and do some panel discussions as well. Like I said, Larry Fuller, the guy who created the first black comic book, you know, out of his news shop, he's gonna be there. I got a lot going on. Yeah, it's gonna be crazy though. I'm super excited about it. More so the video game tournaments too, because I'm a gamer too. So you know, I got a lot going on. I appreciate y'all. I'm done talking. How long was I?
Very long time, but it didn't seem like. Listen, brother, you probably shouldn't have had you go last, man. You had a lot of great information.
And I had to rush through it, man.
But we had an entertainment section that just came out later.
Huh?
How did you get that t-shirt?
This t-shirt?
Yes.
I bought it just for this place too.
Where did you get it from?
Amazon. I put Black History t-shirts in Amazon, and I thought I like this
I
one.
thought that was some of your bird.
No, thank you very much.
I just wanted to say, I know a lot of very interesting people. It was a very great presentation from every single person. And we didn't even know how much Daoud did here. We should give that man a round of applause. He was supposed to be a presenter. He wound up being the MC. So, alhamdulillah, this is a great thing, great turnout.
So where are you from? Where you your home, brother?
Say it again.
Where you your home?
Around the corner off of Lafayette Boulevard.
Born and raised? Right? No?
Listen, he's from Brooklyn, man. You just hear him say that.
I went to Lafayette. I went to Moore.